everyone. Here is another one of my tips to build your intuition. And of course, this field is really vast. There's so many subjects that I could talk about, but my dowsing indicated to me that maybe talking about what the sun means in your astrology is something that would be beneficial. I admit I did a lot of, a fair amount of basic learning about astrology when I started this a number of years ago. And, I read books from people that I respected. I took a beginner's series of classes and learned a lot about the very basics of astrology. And anybody interested in doing that, I have some recommendations, so feel free to reach out to me if you're looking for a recommendation. But the biggest thing I want to say is, like anything in the land of intuition, is that you can learn the basics of something, no matter what it is, whether it's reading cards or dowsing or this idea of astrology. I'm going to start learning about palmistry. I'm kind of interested in that for my own healing, but I'd love to use it with other people too. Anything that you feel called to want to learn about, the basic learning is great as a starter point. It feeds your passion, and all of this ties into what the sun is about in astrology. It feeds your passion. But the thing is the real magic comes when you take that knowledge in, and as you're working with a chart, you're beginning to look at each of the planets and each of the houses, as they're called, those pieces of pie in the round chart, or the signs of the zodiac. You're looking at all these pieces of information, and the real magic is in what comes up inside you as to what that meaning is, what that value is, what the benefit is for the person that you're reading for. What is the important information? And because you can certainly have any number of astrologers do a very basic reading of telling you what it means to have your sun in the sign of Aries, and it happens to be in the 6th house. These are all things that there's very basic meaning to those things. And I do encourage you to learn about that if you're interested. But I really, really want you to just keep working with charts. If astrology is of interest, just keep pulling up people's charts and keep working with it and melt into what comes up inside you as you're working with that information, because that's where I have found, and I see it with other people too in different kinds of intuitive disciplines, you have to put your own mark on it. As anything within the intuition realm, we're looking through a particular lens as an individual human being, but you're tapping into energy that is timeless with any of these practices and runs very deep. And if you have a pull towards astrology, it's very likely that you studied that or practiced that in some form in a prior life. I am a believer that we live multiple lifetimes, many lifetimes. And so there's a lot of people who have already worked with astrology. I know that is definitely true for myself, because these points of wisdom that I want to say, they come up very unexpectedly. So as I was working with astrology, then I was drawn to the Sabian symbols, and those who have followed me for a while know that I use those as part of my card readings. They're absolutely always in my astrology readings because they go a deeper level, which for me I really like. I like making my readings very personal for the person, not just those blanket meanings again of what the sun in Aries in the 6th house means. You want to make it more meaningful, or at least I do. And so that was one piece that came to me, and it is why my astrology approach turned into more of a storytelling approach, because the symbols tell a story and they give you a feeling. There's a vibration to these symbols. But also, I just kind of knew I wasn't buying what typical astrologers would look at retrograde planets. I didn't feel that this was something that was wrong with us. And in fact, anything in the chart being detrimental in any way, I just could not get behind that. It was my own wisdom from some other lifetime that's coming up about these things, about what does a retrograde planet mean, and what does it mean when you have these different configurations, which are the aspects of the planets, and what does an actual opposition, like planets that are directly opposing each other in a chart, could that indeed be a superpower instead of something that is like, oh boy, heavy duty energy? I just can't get behind any line of thought that says things in your chart are detrimental to you in some way. Anything in your chart was chosen by you. Again, this is coming from a place that I don't know where. All I know is it feels true. You chose all those placements. That is your star chart. And it is like a huge tool belt that you work with every day of your life, with each of those 10 planets being a tool in the tool belt, so that you can have a specific kind of experience in this life. That's what I believe. That's what I know to be true. Anything else does not make any sense to me from a universal perspective that says you are supported and you are loved. So you really got to reach back to what is it that you believe the universe to be. And I do believe the universe to be supporting and loving and wanting us to thrive. And I believe that souls choose to come to Earth because they want the experience that's offered here. There is no experience like this planet. And so it's about the gathering of these experiences, and it rounds the soul out in the way it's looking for. So anything that is a detrimental message, I just can't understand that. So our psyche, our ego, may want to tell us, oh, well, that's good and that's bad, but that doesn't line up to me if the universe is indeed, and I truly believe it is, supportive and loving and wanting us to thrive. And it listens to what vibration we're putting out there so that it can deliver the essence of that to us. It may not be in the form that we are envisioning if we're being very specific, but it will be the essence of that, the feeling that's underneath it. So that sort of is a bit of a roundabout way of how I look at astrology. And with the sun, astrologers and just, all those people who write horoscopes, and there's many levels of working with astrology, and I get it. You need to have a quick way to say, I'm a blank. But what I want you to understand is understanding your sun in astrology is very limited. It is just a little tiny piece of the story. What I really feel is important for you to know about is what your sun means, what your moon means, and what your rising sign means. So I will cover each of those in other videos. But I just wanted to talk about the sun today. It's an easy one for astrologers and for all of us to go to. Like I can say, I'm a Pisces, because the sun is what we radiate. I'm purposely sitting here with the blasting sun on me. It's wonderful today. It is what we radiate into the world. It is the source of our deeper passion, our drive, our desire, our wanting to get up every day and to get out there in the world and to do things in the world, to engage with the world, whether that's with other people or work that we do, even running errands. Your sun sign does play into all of that, but it is very readily apparent for most people. most people can relate to what their sun sign is because it's so visible. And the thing with the sun sign also is on a deeper level, it represents what is called your masculine energy, versus the moon represents the feminine energy. And we have both, a mix of both, no matter whether you are a male or a female. You have both types of energy. The masculine is that get up and go. It is the get her done. It is the thrust into the world to create. You really have to think about the egg and the sperm, and the sperm is this force of penetration, in order to create something. All right, so there's tremendous momentum with it, and again, it's an energy that you vibrate out there, and people should readily see this about you. That's not universally true. I have met people who say, I'm a Cancer, but tell me about Cancer, and I will give my best description of that sign, and they're like, yeah, I don't relate to any of that. So there can be some cases where you feel like you don't really resonate, and in those cases, I'd really direct you to look at, well, let's talk about your moon information then, and let's talk about your rising sign, because those are, to me, again, I don't know where this came from, but it wasn't from this brain in Kat's head right here in 2021. That information came from elsewhere, that the moon and the rising sign are almost more important to understand because they're it's an inner motivation. It's really the engine behind the scenes. So you can kind of think about your sun sign being just this part that you're playing, but the motivation for it is within, okay? So it's kind of like the clothes you wear, just the vibe you give off when you go into a space or you go to meet with people. They probably can pretty readily see some of those characteristics about you. But you can't hold the sun by itself. So that's why I'm really encouraging people to learn about their moon and also their rising sign, those two in particular. So when it comes to the sun, again, this is very strong life force energy. It's literally something you're glowing outside of, you're glowing it out into the world. Again, it's that penetration, like the sperm. It's absolute. It's going towards a goal, and there's forward momentum. That's the energy of the sun. It gives us life force, and it depends on the sign that your sun is in, and it depends on what astrologers call houses. I don't like calling it that. Those are all the pieces of pie in a chart. I prefer calling them gateways because I think houses is too separate of a term. We can have our foot in more than one gateway at a time. So I prefer to call them that. It's areas of life. So we all have our sun placed both in a particular zodiac sign and in a particular house. So I'm not going to go through all the signs and all of that. I'll try to figure out a way to maybe talk about that, and then you could mix and match, because the characteristics of all the signs is always going to be the same, no matter the planet. It's just that bend of what the planet is about. So the sun is about what you exude out into the world. It is very much encapsulated in your personality. And again, it's just something so readily seen. And a good way to think about the sun is it's like the sign of Leo, because Leo is, the sun is the ruler of the sign of Leo. So that's another astrology rule in those set of basics that would be important for you to learn about. But the Leo characteristics are about getting out there and engaging with the world and having fun. It gives you the bottom line feeling of what the sun is about. It allows you to get out there and to weigh up different options, and the thing is, it makes the selection. That masculine energy just like the sperm, it penetrates through and it says, I choose this. You know, it's an important decision maker in our lives because it's all just part of this vibration that we carry. So that's a good way to think about it, is to think about the Leo energy. Very filled with a lot of potential and looking for fun. And this is really on a broad level here. The sun is looking to engage. At the end of the day, as humans, we are here to engage with other people, to engage in different situations, and to engage inside of ourselves as well, and to have moments where we pull back. And those are moments where you pull back your sun a little bit and are not quite as focused on, you know, going out and doing. We all have those moments as well. So really, that's a nice way to think about it. The other alignment with the sun is the 5th gateway in the chart. That is the place of fun and hobbies and joy and like a childlike nature. And that's what the sun is. It just blasts, you know? It just blasts out there. You don't have to be in any particular demeanor to have your personality show through. It's just different grades, right? That you're, like, let's say you're having a day where you've got a migraine. Those people that suffer with migraines, your personality, might not be super perky and you're really engaged in a lot of conversation. But that personality is still there. The sun always vibrates out. It shines, okay? So that's that. It's kind of representative of our inner child and wanting to be just engaged with the world. That's what the sun loves. And that's what that masculine energy loves, is come on, let's dig in and let's move forward and let's get this going and let me have something that feels satisfying and really fulfilling to me. These are all the feelings of the sun. It really does. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not the whole story is all I really want to say. It's not the whole story. So when you're looking at your sun within a chart, just see. I mean, if you've got your sun sitting in the sign of Leo or you've got it in the 5th gateway, that is essentially double the energy of the sun. You have a lot of sun energy in those cases because those are rulerships that exist for the sun. So this is the kind of thing I want to make you aware of, is some people have more potent sun, and particularly people who we call Leos, because anybody who says, yep, I'm a Leo, their sun is in the sign that it owns in astrology, you know, that it rules. So it really is like double the energy, and these people do typically have double the energy of the rest of us, and they're hungry to engage with the world in some form. And again, it's not the whole story, because your moon is equally important. Your rising sign is incredibly important, as well as the rest of the planets. But of the two luminaries, the sun and the moon, you have to talk about them together. So I just don't want you to limit yourself to saying, yeah, I'm a Leo or I'm a Virgo. There's much more to the story. So I will try to do some videos that talk about my perspective on each of the signs, that and each of the gateways as well. Those will be really short. I'll try to make them really short, and maybe I'll gang up all of the water signs together and the earth signs and so on. And then I really should do a tour around the different houses, the gateways of astrology as well, just so that then you can do a mix and match, you know. But that information is also online, and you can look it up. But then please sit with the information and say, you know, is there any other wisdom inside me that comes up as I look at this? That our pieces, again, if you're drawn to astrology, that's for a reason, because there are so many choices you could make, and consider that you feel magnetized to try to learn about something like astrology. It's because there's a seed of that already within you. You have done this work before. This is knowledge and wisdom that you hold inside of you. And your wisdom may be very different from what I have coming up, because we've all had different experiences with what is called astrology, and I don't think it was always called that. I think there were different studies of, watching the stars and how they align with one another. So that's kind of my brief overview about the sun. Leave a comment or reach out to me through Facebook if you'd like some recommendations on some basic places to start to get those basics in mind. And believe me, it takes a while. But like any other intuitive exercise, I'm always going to encourage you to just keep picking it up, whether it's cards or dowsing or astrology, any practice or any divining tool of any sort. You just have to keep picking it up. So keep drawing up people's charts. There's lots of charts of famous people already set up online. You can go into those, and if they're really famous and had a very public life, then maybe you would have some perspective about, and you can see how it fits. The sign, you got to layer up the sign that the sun is in, the house, or I call it the gateway. And then, you can see if another level of that is if it has aspects, meaning it makes angles to other planets. I'm not particularly fond of looking at the aspects, so that's why I use Sabian symbols to get a deeper meaning. But everybody's different, and you just have to see what wisdom comes up and trust that it's there. Because if you're drawn to astrology, if you're really drawn to it, and believe me, it's a discipline in itself, because you have to keep picking up the charts. I was doing readings that were, I think before I really started offering readings through my website, I was just trying to work with the information, and it's very complicated. And then I just had to find my own way. I had to find my system and what made sense to me. And for me, the Sabian symbols is what brought it all together. But that won't be true for everybody. There are other people that might use crystals, or they might use artwork, or they might get really into the aspects, those angles that the planets make to one another. There's so many possibilities because it's layers and layers of information. So understand that you'll start out by, okay, I got to reference the book again. Okay, what does Virgo mean? And what does that 6th house mean? And what is the sun again? I mean, it's natural. You're not going to get it all at once, but you just have to keep working with it. And then it becomes like a second language for you. And you start to see that every house in astrology has its kind of higher end energy and its lower end energy, a more dense kind of energy that's not particularly positive. But also the signs, it's the same thing with them. And it's also the same thing with each of the planets. They all have a scale of vibration. And sometimes it gets overblown, and that's when the energy is it's been thrust through a fire hose so powerfully that there tends to be kind of an off result because the balance is missing. Okay? So just keep, my recommendation if you're going to learn, just keep picking up charts. And astro.com is to this day where I still draw up charts. They have a very easy to use system, and just keep drawing up charts. Do it for the people in your family. Of course, do it for yourself. I mean, that's a self-study in itself. And just see what resonates and what comes up, okay? And I'm happy to answer any questions, but there's so many astrologers out there. Everybody's going to have their own way. Just know that this is just my perspective here about the sun for you today. And I guess I just want to make that important footnote. It's not the whole story. I wish people would say, you know, in my case, I'm a Pisces, Cancer, Libra, because it's really the blend of those three that make Kat who she is. That's my sun, moon, and rising sign. And I wish that was more the case for more people. So I hope that helps. I'll try to do more of these videos. Please do let me know if you have a suggestion. I have a list that I'll be working with. I'm thinking maybe cards or dowsing might be the next subject after I get through a little bit of the astrology basics. Bye-bye for now.